Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about standard form of polynomials. What's all that mean, you may be wondering? What's the term polynomial mean? Well, if you just finished watching the videos I created about foiling or multiplying binomials, or if you've just been casually foiling in your free time, you may have noticed that after you foil, you get kind of an interesting looking expression, right? You get something that might look kind of like this. X squared plus 4x plus 5. I don't know, I'm making up the numbers, but you're very likely getting something that starts with an x squared, has an x, and then has a whole number. This is a polynomial. If you recall our binomial definition, we broke down the word into its two parts. Bi meaning two and nomial meaning terms. Well, let's take a look at the word polynomial. What's that mean? Well, nomial still means terms, right? But it starts with the word poly. Poly means many or multi. So this is a multi-termed expression. Now, specifically in the expressions you get after foiling, there are three terms. So while that is a polynomial, it has a very specific name as well. Yeah, trinomial, right? So we're going to be talking specifically today about the standard form of trinomials, but polynomial is a term that we use to very broadly talk about anything with more than two terms, and traditionally we are talking about the trinomials. So while this is an example of a polynomial, let's talk about the standard form. Now, most of us probably think of standard form as a kind of commonly accepted way to write an equation or expression. You know, we kind of think about slope-intercept form, something like that, y equals mx plus b. Now, that's not technically standard form for slope, but that's the idea behind it. We all write it this way just because, well, that's the way we write it. That's how we recognize what we're talking about. And standard form for polynomials is like that too. What we do is we write it as ax squared plus bx equals 0. Now, that's a lot of variables, but you'll notice some crossover between what we have right up here and what we have down there. We have these x squareds. We have an x. Those match. What this standard form is saying is, one, we always need to write our terms in descending order of degree, or descending order of exponent. We always start with our x squared. Then we write our x term. Then we write a term without an x on it at all. You'll notice there are letters in front of the x terms, or there's a letter in place of the number that doesn't have an x with it at all. These are the coefficients, at least the a and the b are coefficients. They are the whole numbers that you see in front of the variable. So you'll notice how in front of the x here is a 4. We would consider 4 to be our b value. The coefficient b, in the example we wrote up here, is 4. When it comes to a, we're looking at the number in front of the x squared. Well, in our example, is there a number in front of the x squared? It doesn't look like it, but there is. That's our invisible 1 coefficient. I'll go ahead and write this here. So 1 would be considered our a value. Finally, we have this c. You can probably guess what c is. In our example up here at least, it's 5. But c stands for constant. The term without a variable. The number that doesn't change, hence constant, right? Now, this last little part equals 0. I know that's not something I wrote up here, but in standard form, it is important for us to consider that the polynomial is equivalent to 0. We're not always going to have an equal sign because sometimes it's going to be written as an expression, much like we have here. But whenever we get farther into, quadratic and polynomial related topics, the vast majority of the time we really need it to equal 0 to be able to do what we're working with. So we don't want it to just equal like 4 or something like that. But this is mostly just here for posterity's sake. We're not going to worry too much about it. So I'm going to write out these couple of definitions here. Okay, sorry I had to stop the video for a second. We had an announcement coming over our intercom. But A is the coefficient in front of the x squared term. B is the coefficient in front of the x term. And C is our constant. Or, I'm going to write right below here, our term without a variable. So we have our A term, our B term, and our C term. Those are really what we are going to refer to whenever we are talking about polynomials. A lot of times whenever we're doing things like factoring or the quadratic equation, and a lot of these things that you guys may not have even heard of yet, we're going to talk about, well, what's the A value of the polynomial? Or what's the C value? Or what's the B value? So if you take anything away from this video about standard form, recognize that the A is the coefficient in front of the x squared, B is the coefficient in front of the x, and C is the constant. Sorry, I get on a roll with coefficient there and keep wanting to call it that. We'll do one example here. I'm just going to write a polynomial and I'm going to ask what is A, what is B, what is C. So if I said 7x squared minus 4x plus 13, what is A? 7. It's the number in front of the x squared, the coefficient. What is B? Are you thinking 4 or are you thinking negative 4? Because B is negative 4. We always got to include that sign. And what is C? Well, it's 13. And it'll always be as simple as that. Just A, B, C, as long as you have it in that correct order of x squared term, x term, constant. All right, if you have any questions about standard form or how to identify what our A values, B values, or C values are, feel free to drop them below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time, guys.